Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Now in the last video I talked about mega projects that went over budget. But now in this video I want to talk about one particular mega project that met its budget. But bear with me because this is not a straightforward story. And the reason it came on budget tells us something very, very interesting. You see, I want to talk about the Olympic Games of 2012, the London Olympic Games. Now, the original budget figures for the London Olympic Games was around 2 to 3 billion. But the final public sector cost was around 9 billion. Yet it was considered a success. And even though it went to 9 billion from 3 billion, it came in on budget. Now, don't look at me strangely. Now, I know you're kind of looking at me strangely right now. I mean, how can it come in on budget? How can something be within budget if it rose from roughly 2 billion to 9 billion? It can't be in budget, right? But this is where the story gets really interesting. You see, 2 years after the initial bid, the UK government came clean. They stated that after analysis, they needed to re-baseline their budget. And they needed to re-baseline it from a staggering 3 billion to 9 billion. They also committed if they got this money, they would not exceed this budget again, that it would be solid. Now, you might be thinking, okay, they cheated. It's easy to stay on budget when you move the goalpost because you just keep changing the budget. But if we dismiss it that easily, we miss a much more important and interesting lesson. You see, almost all previous Olympic Games also re-baselined their budgets, but often they did it repeatedly right up to the opening ceremony. You see, London was different, and that is why it makes it so interesting. You see, London did something no other Olympics had done in this way. They re-baselined only once, and they did it really early, 5 years in advance of the Games. Once they re-baselined, they also published quarterly reports and included things most host cities try to hide, such as infrastructure and security costs, which are things that traditionally have been kind of opaque. Instead, the London Olympic Games continually reported quarterly all their work. They also finished their program with contingency unused, which is almost something unheard of. You see, once they had come clean, they had nothing left to hide. And they made sure nobody else in the project did either. You see, the Olympic Delivery Authority adopted a policy of value engineering. They aggressively hunted for savings during the construction phases. They made high-profile cuts to things that were considered non-essential items. For one example, they initially cancelled the decorative wrap around the Olympics, which made it look pretty, but wasn't necessary and would result in an overrun. They were brutal in their execution of risk management. Now, most projects treat a contingency fund like a kind of spending allowance, but London treated it like an insurance policy. And when a specific risk had passed, that money was immediately taken out and put back into the treasury, so there was no temptation to spend it on something else. You see, they delegated the Olympic Delivery Authority as the single empowered client for all infrastructure. They brought vendors under one roof and selected suppliers on capability and experience rather than the lowest cost. You see, the message from the top was clear. No surprises, bad news early, evidence over optimism, and collaboration over claims. You see, the government then enforced this culture contractually and behaviourally. It wasn't a slogan, it was something they actually had to live. You see, they removed the incentive to hide problems. Discipline can only start when people are not punished for telling the truth. But what really changed system behaviour was transparency reset the incentive structure. You see, when the government publicly admitted the bid was wrong, it sent a system-wide signal. Hiding problems would no longer protect you, but surfacing risk early would also not end your career. And that flips behavior instantly. What it allowed was a disciplined execution of the project. Not special processes or special ways of doing things, but just executing the basics well. Now, The London Olympic Games budget will always be controversial. I mean, let's be honest, it did go way over budget. You know, went from roughly 2 to 3 to 9 billion. We mustn't forget that. But it did do something truly unique. It declared the real numbers 5 years early, and it never exceeded its rebaseline. And I think as project managers, there's some very important lessons to learn from this really fascinating project. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And you know what? Thanks for watching.